Welcome to another episode of Live from the Blue Seats. I'm your host, Rob, joined this week by Dave, a little pre-snowstorm pod for you as we record on Friday. And if you are living, I don't know, anywhere in the eastern 2/3 of this country, you are about to get slammed by a pretty major winter storm. Here in the New York area, we haven't had anything like this in about a decade. And that's kind of an interesting marker in time for a Ranger fan, right? Because we have gone through a decade of Rangers hockey and we're kind of right back where we started. Almost, maybe not exactly to the year, but the Rangers are rebuilding, retooling. We're going to talk about all that, answer your questions, of course. Dave, how are you? Are you prepared for the snow?
I am as prepared as I can be. The snowblower is gassed up. I made sure it turns on. I have a 50-pound bag of salt ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I am more prepared for this storm than I think the Rangers were for this season.
Great segue. Really quick on the salt thing, by the way. It's amazing how fast a 50-pound bag goes. I think I've used, and we have not had a very harsh winter, although we've had quite a bit of snowfall, especially in my part of kind of the northern part of New Jersey. I go through 50-pound bags of salt pretty quick. So you got to have at least one stocked up for this storm that's coming.
Yep.
Also,
the plan is I'm going to salt beforehand, before the snow starts, like 6 a.m. Sunday morning. And hopefully that means the snowblower gets as much as possible, and then I can salt after. That's the plan. I got it down to a science.
Yes, you got to pre-salt. No, I'm with you. I will probably do the same. All right. Well, and obviously stay safe out there, everyone. Best of luck in the storm. Don't go anywhere. Don't do anything stupid. When it stops snowing, let your kids out and play in it, because that is the magic of a snow day, which I'm hoping most people have on Monday, and that smart heads prevail here. But no, as you said, Dave, and transitioning into the business at hand, we have ended up at a point with the Rangers that, I think you and I certainly didn't expect this. I know, JL, who will be back with us next week. I know you're going to miss the next couple weeks after this. He's very positive, and I think we all wanted to see the best version of this team come to fruition, right? Maybe sneak into the playoffs, lay a foundation for kind of like a second window. And it became very clear with the scoring issues and now the sort of 5-on-5 issues and just overall lack of speed and talent that that's not realistic. And it is time to retool. So I didn't jump on the emergency pod that you and JL did when you reacted to the letter, but just, look, I was kind of happy to see it, honestly. Like now, do I think it's a completely necessary thing? Do I find it absurd that they basically, in many ways, copied and pasted or chat GPT'd a 2026 version of the 2018 letter? Yeah, I think it's a little silly, but at least there's a recognition from the powers that be that changes need to be made. Now, of course, the larger discussion is, do you trust the powers that be to do all the hard work here? Most people don't.
Nope.
Exactly. So, and that really is the crux of the issue. But I just wanted to, before we get to the questions and kind of, go through those, I think, as we were talking about right before we started recording, Dave, normally we get on the pod, we like to talk about the most recent couple of games. That doesn't really make sense anymore. I mean, the Rangers are, for all intents and purposes, they're already playing out the string here. Now, if they acquire some new guys, we'll dig into their performances. We'll start talking about the on-ice performance a little bit when we have something interesting to look at. But right now, this is a dead team. This is a zombie hockey team, and it's not worth talking about the game. So we're going to talk about kind of the state of affairs when it comes to the rumors, what we know is out there, what we think might happen. And then obviously when things do happen, we'll be able to react to those in real time. So Dave, I mean, let's start with Panarin. He's the obvious one. He's obviously the most significant trade chip the Rangers have. I believe there is massive interest in him across the league. I am not, to throw a little bit of positivity in here, as concerned that his no move clause is going to affect the package that he gets, because I think that a lot of these destinations that we're hearing are attractive places. and I think he'll have his pick, which means that if teams want him, they will have to up their offers. So, who are the teams that you are hearing that are most in the mix, and what do you make of the Panarin situation?
I mean, it's not so much that I'm hearing. It's all what has been out there
Reported,
already. It
right? Yeah.
seems, yeah, it seems LA is something Elliot Friedman has floated. Vince Mercogliano said both Washington and Colorado are front runners. All three teams make sense for Panarin. What I think is going to be a hurdle is not so much the no move clause, but the desire to sign an extension that takes him to age 38, 39, 40. I think
Right.
that's going to be the issue. And I think that is going to be what either holds up a trade in general or holds up the Rangers from getting the most they possibly can out of it, because a rental is worth far less than a guy under contract.
Right. And so this would essentially be the trade will not happen unless, in theory, an extension is possible and in place, right? So, and that shifts the compensation from pure rental to, well, now you're getting a guy with term on a number that you helped to determine, right? So, in an ideal world, that means the return is larger.
It is
Better, maybe
but
not
it
larger.
does.
Larger, the wrong word.
The return would be bigger. It would be more. So the typical return for a Panarin type as a rental is a good prospect, not top prospect, but a good enough prospect that you're saying, oh, this guy could be an NHLer, and a first round pick. But if you start adding term, you're looking at an actual young NHL player with
Right.
a high ceiling that hasn't necessarily hit it yet. You know, if we're using LA as an example, they've been dangling Brandt Clark forever. So maybe he becomes available. If you're looking at Washington, maybe Alexei Protas or his brother Ilya becomes available. Well, Ilya's not an NHLer yet, but Alexei Protas might be someone that we look into. Panarin has been connected to San Jose as well. Maybe, I'm not going to say Will Smith, but maybe Colin Graff becomes available, or Willie Mecklin becomes available if he's got term. So those are the kinds of guys that you get if Panarin is under contract. Otherwise, you're looking at, I don't know, I'm not good with prospects. This is where we need hope, because I'm not good with prospects at all.
Right. But in theory, it's somebody who's maybe not their top prospect, but somewhere between their second and fourth best, almost NHL ready guy and a pick.
Yeah. So I'm going to pull up Washington for a second. Will this load? Holy crap. Go slower.
By the way, and one name that you dropped that got me very excited there was Protas, because
is it Protas? How does it?
Usually
maybe I played too much StarCraft.
Yeah, no. Listen, you probably have it right, because no North American hockey announcer is going to say that name with the right accent. But whenever I've watched him play, I've been very impressed. And he also, despite the fact that he's not North American, which we know Chris Drury seems to have an affinity for, and USA Hockey in particular. But
yeah,
he's big, he's physical. He's a center, I believe. I mean, if there's one player in my mind or, out there that I kind of think Barkov light, it's him. And I don't think Washington will trade him, because I think they see him as like a huge part of their future. But you have to give to get. And this is what I'm saying about, okay, if Panarin is, his management team is saying, we're happy to go to Washington, LA, or Colorado, those three, right? Then Chris Drury could say, like, send me your best offer, and he could play the three off each other. So, like, that to me that's the best case scenario, is that multiple teams want him and that he would be willing to extend in multiple places. And it doesn't sound like that's not far-fetched. It doesn't sound, sometimes you go through these things and you're like, all right, that's unrealistic. That's too many things that need to happen. But in this case, I actually think it all could happen.
So with Washington, excuse me, I'm still fighting whatever plague I got 2 weeks ago, by the way. So if they're not willing to trade either Protas brother, whatever brother,
Proton Pack,
then a name Hope floated was Ivan Miroshnichenko.
It's a mouthful.
A winger, 22 years old in the AHL. Miro is, I think he's like 6'2", 220 or something like that. He's a big kid. He scores in the AHL. He's a decent enough prospect. I would put him still behind overall talent-wise, behind Andrew Cristall and Cole Hudson, who are top prospects, but I don't think Arinto Panarin gets either of them. Maybe under contract. If they're not willing to trade the Protas brothers, then those guys become more available. But I don't know if that fits what Drury wants, because the thing that scares me the most about Drury is his tunnel vision. He gets his sights set on somebody, not either a player or a path, and he will do that path and trade for that player no matter what. And in this case, when you're doing a retool, you have to be creative. Take the best offer, get as much capital as you can, and then flip those for guys that you want. Don't just take a lesser package because it's somebody that you think hits your plan. And this is where Colorado is a dangerous option for the Rangers, because Colorado has guys like who are solid players like Sam Girard, Ross Colton. Colorado has a first-round pick in 27, not 26, but Girard and Colton are under 30 years old. They're good enough players, but is that they don't have high ceilings. They're middle to bottom of the lineup players. And if Drury is focused on a quick turnaround and not getting the best possible package and the most possible quality out of a trade, that he's going to leave offers on the table. And this is what happened with Kaapo Kakko.
I couldn't agree more. And I think you just have to be, and hopefully the letter is an indication that they're thinking this way, but who knows? But you've got to be chasing and buying upside. And, we were, a lot of us were chatting on Blue Sky earlier today on Friday, as we record this, about the sort of Vince Mercogliano article. I hesitate to call it an expose, but there was some new reporting and quoting in there from, unnamed sources, but, folks that were in the room, right? Either that are current Drury people or former Ranger staffers, scouts, player development people, whatever it may be. And one of the clear flaws, and this is more so on the drafting side, but I think it applies to all sort of, strategy when it comes to acquiring players. The Rangers almost never chase ceiling. They're always chasing floor. And that is a massive hindrance to building a hockey team. Now, yes, you need a robust middle of the lineup, right? Like that's part of the reason Colorado is so good, is because look, McKinnon is incredible. Makar is incredible, but they have just really solid depth pieces up and down the lineup, and Florida's the same way. That said, you cannot only have Artemi Panarin turn into like Ross Colton and a draft pick. That to me would be a massive fail, and it would be in line with, and unfortunately on brand for, the Rangers and in line with their history, right? And the draft story about how they were looking at the board when they chose Lias Andersson, and guys like Nick Suzuki, Marty Necas, and Robert Thomas were on there, but they liked Andersson's floor. They saw a gritty 2C with two-way ability, right? That was as his ceiling, where you should be looking at that pick and looking at Marty Necas and saying, well, his floor might be lower if he never pans out, but his ceiling is top line center. And look what he's doing now in Colorado. So this is a problem with this team, and it's something that I don't think we can trust Chris Drury to operate any differently. But look, all we have is Chris Drury right now, and we have to hope that he learns.
I mean, I will give Drury credit where credit is due. He does learn quickly, but he still hasn't overcome his biggest weaknesses, which is tunnel vision and lack of an identifiable plan. And if he is so focused on a 1 year turnaround, he's going to take crappy packages.
Yep.
Because he thinks it's going to move it forward. And I understand the Dolan factor here, and I don't want to discount that, but we really have to look at Drury's body of work, and there is in a vacuum, he never overpaid for anybody in any of his trades, but the biggest issue is he has these guys that he wants, and he just doesn't move off of it at all. And I don't know if there's anybody he's been specifically chasing, but news like, for example, Shane Wright becoming available should change everything for his plans. He should be dropping whatever he can and going out and getting Shane Wright. Yep. Because at the very worst, you took a shot at a high ceiling guy who was a 4th overall pick who has good possession driving numbers, but Seattle's a train wreck. And they're not a well-run organization. Granted, neither are the Rangers, but maybe he just needs a Mike Sullivan coach. And Vincent Trocheck could fit right into where Seattle's looking for Shane Wright or Alexis Lafreniere if they're looking to do a change of scenery. But I don't think Drury's creative enough to do that. And that's the crux of the problem for me.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree with you. I think Shane Wright is the archetype, right? And that is the exact type of player they should be targeting. Guys like that become available. And, another thing I wanted to touch on that we were kind of talking about them just a few minutes ago, Washington, right? Washington just did this. And there have been several really good articles about how they basically did exactly what the Rangers are trying to do here. They threaded the needle. It was not a full rebuild. It was a retool. And the way they did it was they accumulated lots of draft picks, but didn't make every pick. They used those picks to make trades for young NHLers, for guys who needed a change of scenery, for some distressed assets like Pierre-Luc Dubois. And here they are. They're a bona fide lock playoff team. You're not going to worry about the Caps missing the playoffs for a lot of years now. They're going to be in it, and they're going to have a chance. Now, do I think they are an elite upper echelon team? No. But I'd certainly rather have their situation than the Rangers right now in terms of the roster, the age of the players, the style of play, all that stuff. So, look, to me,
the Caps also have a great farm system. They have good. Yep. Their top 10 farm system, and that happened as part of the retool.
Mm-hmm. No, and I hope the Rangers realize. And look, the Rangers did have a higher ranked prospect pool not that long ago. The Ranger problem is getting those guys from draft day into an NHL uniform. Obviously, we know that Chris Drury has only made one draft pick that has made it to the NHL and contributed and played more than like a handful of games. It's Noah Laba, who, again, we said this a couple weeks ago, we love the kid, but he probably could have used the whole year in Hartford. They rushed him because they rushed him. They wanted to play Miller or Zibanejad on the wing. He won the job from Juuso Parssinen, who I can't believe is still in the organization, but he is, because he apparently scored his first goal for the Wolfpack tonight on Friday.
He was hurt. He was hurt.
Okay, fair. I literally forgot he existed, though. But so fine, Noah Laba wins the job, but he probably should be in Hartford. The point is they need to restock the farm system. And when you are trying to do a 1 year retool, you worry if that's going to be a priority or not. And it probably isn't going to be, and that's just going to compound these issues.
But even Washington's took 2 years, right? It took 2 deadlines and 2 off seasons to truly put together the team they have.
Yeah, well, they basically decided to start selling, I think, in 22. They were back in the playoffs in 23-24. They played the Rangers and got swept, and the Rangers, pretty much didn't even have to play hard in games 3 or 4. Like, that series was over before it started. But yeah, look, now they're back in the, they're a solid playoff team. So yeah, but it was quick. That's the point, that, like you said, that's about as quick as it can happen. Like, if Chris Drury really thinks this can be done in less than 1 year, that if we fast forward a year from now, that this team is going to be like just good, like measurably and reliably good, he's nuts. That can't happen.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what he thinks.
Yeah, I know.
It's actually kind of funny because I remember like last year, somebody called me a Drury apologist and that I'm his biggest fan.
What?
And I'm like, oh,
You
what are
hate
you
the guy. You've
reading?
hated the guy forever.
I put out something in 2021 about how terrible he is with managing players and managing personalities. But I'm also objective and I'm trying to be positive about some of the things that he's done and some of the lessons that he's learned. He does understand the, cutting bait when it's time. He understands that. He understands how to learn from mistakes. He now has a buffer between him and the players. He fails fast. He dumped Nemeth when he knew he had to. Granted, that's turning out fucking epically right now because Utah is going to wind up with a top 5 pick in the second round because of it.
Yep.
He understand. He does learn lessons, but he needs to. He fails epically before he learns those lessons, and that's the biggest concern for me is him and Bill Guerin are cut in the same mold where they want to recreate 1980 and the Miracle on Ice. The problem is that was 50 fucking years ago. Move on. That's almost in the same vein as Ranger fans holding on to 1994 and saying we need to build a team like the 1994 New York Rangers. No, you don't. You need to build a team that fits in the 2026, 2027 NHL landscape, which is skill, moving the puck, and being able to transition. And the Rangers can't do that because all they have is Adam Fox on the blue line. And they have no center depth outside of Mika Zibanejad right now and Sam Carrick, but Sam Carrick's not an offensive guy. JT Miller is awful. Vincent Trocheck is basically waiting to be traded. And like you said, Noah Laba was solid, but he probably should be in the AHL at this point. I love the kid, but he needs time.
He does, and I think he'll be fine too. Like I don't think this is going to be a case of because he doesn't come with the hype of a Kakko or a Lafreniere. I don't think they're going to ruin him by overexposing him, but it's just one of those things that it's the sign of a hastily put together team with no plan, which is what we keep coming back to here. And look, until that changes, and until things like Shane Wright happen, and until like a forward-thinking trade, utilizing maybe Braden Schneider happens, because there's a very good chance that they might just hold on to Braden Schneider. And to me, I would trade him. And I know that there's some, thought out there that like, well, isn't he the kind of guy you want to build around? Like, not to get too in the weeds about the current team, and I want to get to the questions, but like Braden Schneider has been so bad for the last season and a half that personally, I can't watch him anymore. He's so awful. And I think he's beyond saving here. But if he still has value around the league because of his youth and his size and the fact that he'll be relatively cheap as an RFA, then I'm trading him like 8 ways to Sunday here.
So Schneider has a ton of perceived value across the league. He is what every GM wants, a young, cost-controlled, right-handed defenseman that is perceived to be a strong defensive player. And what the Rangers have working for them right now is that they are so bad that you can't tell that Schneider really, the puck's a grenade on his stick.
Yeah.
He reminds me a lot of Dan Girardi.
Yep. He's
becoming a better skater.
Yes, agreed. But he's also, Girardi was an average skater until he got older, and Schneider's a young kid, and he skates fine, but I agree. It's a lot of the same stuff.
You have to move Schneider. And there are San Jose will be all over Schneider. They have no defenseman. Dallas would be all over Schneider. Utah would be all over Schneider. I can't think of a team that wouldn't be right now.
Yeah.
And if the desire is to send him to the Western Conference, leave him in San Jose with Artemi Panarin and come back with Will Smith.
Well, that would be something. I don't think they're going to trade Will Smith.
I would shit my pants.
Yeah.
But, somebody floated, what was it, Panarin with an extension for and Schneider for Misa. I just laughed like that's not happening.
Yeah.
But let's stick to realistic trade scenarios. I do think the Rangers would ask for Smith, get laughed at, and then they probably get Eklund, a good to top prospect, and a first round pick from San Jose for Panarin and Schneider.
Yep. Yeah, and I think I'm happy with that. Like if that's the outcome, Eklin's a guy I know I brought him up like a few weeks ago, and just as like again the type of guy that like has had a good year, is kind of struggling this year, but on a better team, and but just he's the right age, he's the right style, he fills a need, and it's one of those things that they just need to continue turning the roster over. It's weirdly, even with all the trades and all the stuff that's gone on in the last calendar year, doesn't this still feel so much like the same team? Like, even though JT Miller, like he's here less than a year and Kreider's gone and Trouba's gone, they have not been able to shake the, sort of the vestiges of the old Rangers. And if they're really going to do this, like if this is actually about a retool, they've kind of got to complete the turnaround here. And they've got to get still a bunch of new bodies in the building because it's not working. So, all right, let's why don't we go to the questions here and see where that leads us, because there's always good stuff.
There's always good questions, but I do want to add one thing to the last piece you just said.
Yeah.
If it's true that they can't shake, oh God, sorry.
No worries.
If it's true that they can't shake whatever last year was, then you have no choice but to get rid of Lafreniere. You have no choice but to get rid of Panarin. You have to get rid of Schneider. You have to get rid of anybody that is even remotely vocal about their distrust of Drury. And I get it. Nobody likes him. He's an asshole. But he's still the GM. And just because you don't like your boss doesn't mean you give up.
Right.
And this is a piece that is now on the players. Maybe because Panarin was the one that organized the goodbye for Barclay Goodrow, and then all the off-ice NDAs with the sexual assault charges and things like that. Not charges. I can't say charges because he was never formally charged. Sexual assault allegations. Allegations. Thank you. I misspoke. Nobody sue me, please. I misspoke. Maybe that is still lingering, and Panarin is somebody that does need to go because of all of that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Look, I mean, and I think the other thing is, again, JT Miller's been an abject disaster this year, but Drury likes him. They're aligned. And this is going to be like, he's going to be part of it. JT Miller's going nowhere. And I think at this point, Mika Zibanejad obviously has shown no willingness to waive his no move clause. And he's been really good. He's been their best all around player.
He's been their best skater.
Yes.
Best skater.
So, and he's still young enough where even if it takes 2 to 3 years to get back to some semblance of contention, I always use this team as an example because they kind of, had similar iterations where Dallas is really led by Robertson, Wyatt Johnston, Rupi Hintz, et cetera, Sam Steele, et cetera, but they still have Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin from their previous era, right? And they kind of play these secondary and tertiary roles. To me, the Rangers version of that will be and should be Zibanejad and Miller. They'll kind of fall into that Seguin and Benn role when hopefully Gabe Perreault makes a leap and becomes one of the top, producers. They find their next star player either in free agency or through one of these trades or the draft. And that's what it would look like if it was successful. Now, again, that's a hell of a needle to thread. But Dallas got there. I mean, they're a bona fide top team in the league. They have been for most of the last 7-8 years, right? They're at the point where they're trying to bring in new coaches to hit their ceiling. Pete DeBoer got them to a bunch of conference finals and, but it's a really good roster ultimately, like coach aside, like it's a really, really good roster. And look, I mean, right now there's not anybody in the system that reminds me of Rupi Hintz, Jason Robertson, Wyatt Johnston. The Rangers just don't have those guys in the system. And that's why it looks and feels particularly bleak right now, but they have to do the work of finding those guys. And that's what success will look like with Miller and Zibanejad still in the fold. Because I do think there's a lot of people out there that are basically thinking if JT Miller and Mika Zibanejad are still here, this team will never be good. And while I understand that sentiment, I don't think it's necessarily true.
It's rooted in subjective passion.
Yes.
More than it is objective fact. And I am willing to give Miller the benefit of the doubt for his on-ice play because he's hurt.
Yes.
I want him to sit and get healthy But that's not happening. And you know what? Maybe this works out better for the Rangers because he's going to go to the Olympics. He's probably going to wind up missing a bunch of games for the Rangers once he gets back to heal up, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And without a healthy Miller, the Rangers are not going to be good, which means they lose more games to get a higher draft pick. And I do think that needs to be taken into account. The Rangers are on pace for a top 5 pick in a draft that has 4 or 5 top guys before basically looking like this is a lot like the 2017 draft,
Right.
where you had 4 or 5 top guys and then the rest were basically shots in the dark. Or the 2019 draft where after the first 4 or 5 guys, nobody panned out from that draft. I know that we all get on the Kravtsov pick.
Yeah, there's
nobody from that draft panned out. That was a
Right.
bad draft.
Yeah, that right, and that's nothing. I wouldn't fault the Rangers for that. I agree, and I think
No.
there was enough there. And at least with the Kravtsov pick, they hunted ceiling, and I'll give them credit for that. They went after the ceiling, and it didn't work out. All right, let's go to the questions.
Let's go to the questions.
Rolling on that.
All right, so first question is a doozy. Richter, 1994. Why do we do this to ourselves?
We get this question every week, by the way.
I know, but I love this question because the answer changes every week.
That's true. I'll say this. I have accepted where they are now, and now I feel like I can at least, this is fun. Like, it's fun to talk about this stuff. Now, I've mentioned this before, and it's an easy thing for me to plug, but my cousin's Jets podcast, Badlands, it's awesome. Go check it out. Like, I feel like I'm doing Badlands now because all they ever talk about is rebuilding the Jets because the Jets are always rebuilding. But there is fun digging into the details of roster building, what they should do at the drafts. This trade deadline is absolutely fascinating. The Rangers are the premier team at this deadline. They have the best players to offer. They should come away with a haul, and it should somewhat reset the franchise. So it is exciting from that regard. But look, is it fun to watch the team? No. I have season tickets. That sucks because it's not fun to go to games, and they're not really reselling at a high value. So, but we do this because we were born into it, and because one day we feel like if we stick with it long enough, we'll see that elusive Stanley Cup.
Hope. It is the quintessential human delusion, simultaneously the source of your greatest strength and greatest weakness. That's why we do this to ourselves. Hope.
Nice. Well said.
I will never miss an opportunity to use that quote from The Matrix.
That's The Matrix, right? Yeah. What a film.
Well ahead of its time, and unfortunately sparked the single worst conspiracy theories ever.
Yes.
Of which Neil deGrasse Tyson said, we can't prove that we're not in a simulation. And I hate the fact that he said that because you can't.
Right. Well,
he's right. You can't prove it. And if whoever's running the simulation, if we're in one, can you cut the shit with the Rangers? Give us something with New York sports in general. Give us something, please.
Truly. I agree.
What did we do to deserve this bullshit?
Yeah. I'd like to, let's get to a point where the New York teams are winning a little bit more often.
Yep. All right, next one. Spozo. Do you think the NHL should add some type of cap or restriction on movement clauses in the next CBA? Either a team limit to the number they can have or add restrictions to player eligibility like the NBA. It seems like every contract with decent length now includes one, and it's getting ridiculous. It's handcuffing teams when they have no choice but to include them because that has become the starting line for most contracts.
The only way, it's a great question. The only way you can do that is if there is a massive lift in the salary cap and if guys start getting real money. And I hate to sound so, look, real money. I know, a guy who makes $5 million, that's just a year. There's a ridiculous amount of money, and most people on earth would kill to have that and would be able to make it last for multiple generations. NHL athletes just don't make real money compared to other athletes, and they don't have a lot of leverage when they get into contract negotiations, and the cap is low. And the reason it exists in the NBA is because the top players make $60 million a year. And that's just how it is. Similar thing in Major League Baseball, although their economic structure is, is way out of whack now, and they're marching towards some sort of cataclysmic shift in that sport. But look, it's just the players won't accept that unless they are seeing a lot more money coming out of ownership. Other than that, they're going to hang on to whatever leverage they can to get the best deal they can, because if you can't get more money, you want stability. And that's where the no movement clause comes from. So that's a tough one. And I agree. I wish there was an ability to cap them. But also, look, if you're a team, you can express restraint and not give them out like candy like the Rangers have. And the Devils too, because I know the Devils basically locked themselves out of Quinn Hughes because of all the no movement clauses that they couldn't get around. So it's a fact of life, but you also don't have to give every player one if you don't want to.
Yep. The only thing I'll add to that is I believe we're going to see less of them in the future, because now we had a 5-year period of a flat cap.
Yep.
And now I think we're projected for $104 million cap next year, and then over 110 the following year. So I think we're going to see fewer no move clauses. We might get a couple of no trade clauses here and there, but what also wouldn't shock me is if we get limited no trade clauses with half a no move clause, which basically means you can't send me to the AHL without my permission.
Right.
So I wouldn't be shocked if we see more of those. You can't waive me, you can't send me to the AHL, but you can trade me.
Right.
I think we're going to see a lot more of those.
Yeah, I think that's possible. And I do think it ultimately comes down to, if there was more money in this system, you'd see less of them. But the players they're going to ask for that because it's a point of leverage and it's a way to get the best deal for them.
Yep. Next question from Nikki70. Do you still think Jason Robertson is a good get despite the quote-unquote retool? Do you really believe Robertson would be amenable to coming here, considering there will be some dark days ahead? Robertson is 26, by the way.
I mean, if there was an age range I would target, it would be 23 to 26 years old, maybe 27, because that's the scoring prime. And that is also just a sweet spot for developing and fully developed players. Look, I mean, I think everybody also I know this wasn't directly asked in the question, but there have been some things said and mentioned to this effect that like people won't want to come to New York because it's a circus and because of Drury's handling of these issues and like none of that's real. Like New York is still going to be one of the most desirable destinations. So I find it very hard to believe that Jason Robertson would be like, no, I don't want the Rangers. Almost every single player in the league will want the Rangers if the circumstances are right. I think he's the perfect get if you could get him. I just have serious doubts about whether they can get him.
I'm with you on that. The only thing I'll add is New York itself can be a factor against the Rangers. So there's a lot of people that don't like big cities and they won't go to not the biggest city, but New York is New York.
Oh, it's pretty
a lot
damn
of people. Yeah, it's still New York City, and it's not a selling point for a lot of people. Think of it as a true New Yorker. And I'm going to use this example. I interviewed for a job. This is 2026. So I interviewed for a job in 2010. And in the interview, they said, we have an office with a great location right in the heart of Times Square. And I looked them dead in the eye and said, that's not a selling point to somebody from here.
Right. Well, right. Yeah.
They didn't like that, but they appreciated the honesty and they still offered me the role. I didn't take it, but I thought that's where my mind goes regarding people that don't want to come to New York. It's the city, not the team. I still think Jason Robertson is an elite get. You need somebody with his talent, and the Rangers don't have anybody coming with that talent.
No.
He is a 100-point player. He is a he is a pure sniper. He shoots the puck he's got a deceptive release. He hits his targets. He's got a great hard snapshot. It's just, he's so good, and he's everything the Rangers need. But I question whether the Rangers have the tools to pull it off. And the only way I see this happening is if Panarin says, yes, I'll go to Dallas with a 3-year extension at $10 million. And I don't see that happening. And then you still got to include Braden Schneider. And then you still got to include another piece, probably a sweetener. A first-round pick, one of the several they're going to have. After all, this is hopefully one of the several they're going to have to do this properly to get a Jason Robertson. But you have to be creative. You have to move a Trocheck in a deal that includes a first-round pick, so you can flip that first-round pick with Panarin and Robertson, with Panarin and Schneider to get Robertson.
Right.
And that's the only way it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that is one of those things where it feels like it's too many things that need to happen for it to come together. I also do think that this is just there. Frankly, this is one of those situations where Dallas might be doing this to get as a negotiating tactic, right? To like get Robertson to come to the table and meet their price. I have a hard time believing that they're going to actually do this. I think that when it's a player of this caliber, teams generally find a way to get it done, especially in the NHL. It's just guys like this don't normally become available. Now it does happen from time to time, but Dallas isn't exactly in a place where they'd be actively looking to shop him. I understand the salary cap situation, but there are ways to make that work that enable you to hang on to your elite goal scorer. So I have a hard time believing it'll happen, but it's out there until it's not as a possibility.
And the one thing I'm going to add to this is there is nobody on this team that is off limits if Jason Robertson is truly available.
Yeah,
that includes Will Cooley. That includes Gabe Perreault.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot keep them and say, no, we're not going to include them in a trade for Jason fucking Robertson. He's a top 10 winger in the NHL.
Yep. And
Cooley will never be a top 10 winger in the NHL. He will be a solid middle six winger. I love Will Cooley and what he brings to this organization. I will give him a piggyback ride to Dallas if I need to. Ditto Gabe Perreault, who is the highest ceiling of anybody on this roster under 25 right now. And he still projects out to be at best a top six winger, not even a solid top line winger.
Right. Yeah. No, listen, I agree. And you have to give to get. And if Dallas says you've got to include one of Perreault or Cooley or whoever, I wouldn't hesitate either.
You do it in a heartbeat. All right, next one. NYC Crash. 2 questions. First, which trade will be the first to happen? So which player do the Rangers trade first?
Okay.
Panarin.
Yeah, let's start there.
Panarin. It's got to be Panarin.
Well, actually, let me go a little bit of a different direction. I think there's actually just as good a chance. So if you were doing betting odds, right? Like I would say Panarin is the slight favorite. Right behind him at almost the same odds is Trocheck. And I'll give you my reasoning. I think that the scarcity of centers on the market might scare a team into trying to jump the market. The way the Rangers did with Vladimir Tarasenko. Now I know he wasn't a center, he was a winger, but they knew they wanted him and they figured why wait until the competition picks up at the deadline and let's just kind of make our Godfather offer now and see if we could jump the line. I could see that happening with Trocheck because again, like talk about an attractive asset, right? 3 years left on a deal that cap hit of $5 million. He is a 60 to 70 point center. He has a reputation as a strong two-way player, even though his defensive metrics kind of suck. Don't tell anybody. I don't want to lower his trade value. And he just has that, like, he's a gritty playoff style 16 game player. Any of the contending teams needs a center. He would automatically improve any contending team, and almost any team could fit his cap hit. So to me, that is just as likely as Panarin because somebody might jump the line. And the fact that he's a center makes him that much more valuable.
I wonder if LA would circle on Trocheck. We know Minnesota's been tied to Trocheck. I just don't see what Minnesota can truly offer, given they just gave up everybody for Quinn Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
But LA needs scoring. They're a defensively responsible team, which I do think a lot of Trocheck's metrics are impacted by the Rangers being a disaster.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's a bad defensive player. I should caveat that, but and you're right. I think in that system, he actually probably is a really good fit because they already do play solid defense and they kind of need the chance creation, which he provides.
And they're losing Kopitar.
Yes.
He's retiring at the end of the year.
And you can't replace him with one player because that just doesn't exist. But you can make up for it a decent chunk of it with Trocheck.
I'd be intrigued to see how that plays out because I made a prediction that doesn't look like it's going to come to fruition, which is the Rangers are going to leave somebody behind on the West Coast, and I don't think that's happening, unfortunately. The second piece, NYC Crash, who will be traded before the freeze and who will be traded after the freeze, the Olympic freeze?
So I'll say, I think Panarin goes right down to the wire. I think he goes to deadline day. I think Trocheck and Schneider go before the deadline. I don't know about before the freeze. Look, I mean, the freeze is in 2 weeks. So do I think Trocheck gets traded in 2 weeks? Maybe. But I don't know. I'm going to say nobody, honestly. I think it all happens after the Olympics.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. And since I said Panarin is the first guy, I'm going to take a step back and do a different answer. If Panarin is not the first guy traded and he goes down to the wire like you, Rob, said, I think Lafreniere is the first guy that moves before the Olympic freeze. And that's only because I don't see Seattle or the Rangers getting equal value for Wright and Lafreniere, respectively, other than a swap.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see teams lining up for Lafreniere and offering what we think he should get. And I don't see teams lining up for Shane Wright doing the same thing.
Right. So why not just call each other and do it? Yeah.
Yep. Just make it happen. And I put this in the group chat and I put it on Blue Sky too. It would be absolutely hilarious if Seattle winds up with both Kakko and Lafreniere.
It would.
And then Tyler one-upped it and said, yeah, and then they go and win a cup.
Oh, God. Well, they're not with Lane Lambert behind the bench. I'll say that.
True.
There's no chance of that happening. But they're 5 points out of a playoff spot. So, look, I could see them not only trading Wright because they feel like they have to make that deal and get him, get that change of scenery thing done. But I think they will add at the deadline. I'll say that. I do think they'll be active because that franchise wants to be in the playoffs. They're an expansion team. Unlike Vegas, Vegas has turned into an elite team overnight, pretty much. Seattle had a good start. I think they made the playoffs 2 out of their first 3 years. And now it's kind of, you're in that weird spot if you're them where even from a business perspective, what are we selling this fan base? They have a really good and engaged fan base, but the newness starts to wear off. So you got to be in the playoffs to keep people interested in a market like that. And I think they'll be aggressive at the deadline.
All right. ASFJR writes, and this is kind of a lengthy one. This ties into Dave's 7 thoughts trade scenario from Wednesday with a bit of a tweak.
Mm-hmm.
The suggested Panarin trade and Soucy trade occur as is, and I'll go through this, before the deadline. The remaining deals that I put are on the table, but with the following. Okay, you know what? Let me back up. I'll give a sneak peek into one of my thoughts posts, which is behind the Patreon wall, and what ASFJR is referring to. So the Panarin trade that I put in was Panarin with an extension and 50% retained this season for Eklund, Cameron Lund, and a 2026 first-round pick.
Mm-hmm.
The Soucy trade he's talking about is Soucy to Edmonton with Jonathan Quick if he approves being traded. for a 2026 second for both of them, or a third if it's only Susie.
Okay.
And basically what AS is saying, Dallas will only trade Robertson for Trocheck, Schneider, and a pick. So I had Trocheck going to Minnesota, leveraging some rumors we heard. So he has Trocheck, Schneider, and a pick for Robertson. Do you think that trade is worthwhile? For the Rangers, absolutely. Dallas says no.
Yeah, they would say no.
I don't see Dallas doing that. Yeah.
Absolutely not.
They need an elite scoring forward, and they're not going to get it in Trocheck.
Right.
Or do you pass on Robertson and follow through on the other trades as listed and play out 26-27? The other trades as listed, Trocheck 50% retained this year only to Minnesota. Rangers get Danila Yurov, David Spacek, whatever, and then 2027 or a 2028 first round pick.
Do they not have their 26 for? They don't, right? Yeah, right.
Quinn Hughes,
right? Of course.
Utah gets Braden Schneider and Brennan Othman. Rangers get Barrett Hayton and a 2026 first.
Do you think they would trade us Hayton? Because I'm doing that tomorrow. I saw that in the post, Dave.
That one's a stretch.
Yeah,
I will admittedly say that's a stretch. That wasn't based on any rumors that we had heard already. I was trying to find something that might work, and I don't. I'm looking at that again, and that's a stretch.
I mean, look, to be fair, he has only 5 goals this year. He's 25 years old. His career high in goals is 20 last year. And so he's a 5th overall pick, but I mean, he's not unlike Lafreniere, right? I mean, he's not, and now look, Lafreniere's 1st overall, but like 5th overall pick in 2018. All right, you're seeing kind of like some decent progression. He goes from 24 points in 60 games in 21-22 to 43 points in 22-23, but then injuries in 23-24 and 46 points last year. And now he's down to 14 points in 45 games, and he's only playing 15 minutes, which is the least he's played since his 2nd year in the league when he averaged 11.29. So this is a player that is not exactly trending in the right direction. So, look,
neither is Braden Schneider, actually.
Right.
So and Schneider has a lot of perceived value, as does Hayton. So maybe I'm not that far off.
You might not be that far off. And I mean, but again, like I saw that and I'm salivating and I'm like, he's the exact type of guy I would want. Shane Wright, like give me all those guys who were drafted in the 1st round, sometime in the late teens or early 2020s. Like give me as many of those guys as possible. You get a couple of shrewd, like, mid-level guys, thinking of the Caps example, like, they went out and traded for Rasmus Sandin and they got Pierre-Luc Dubois, right? Who again was a distressed asset. Like that's what the retool needs to look like. It needs to be like some shrewd trades where you're getting young players who again are falling out of favor or not going to get a 2nd or 3rd contract. A couple of guys that need a change of scenery, 1 or 2 guys who has some good NHL experience, but just isn't working in their current situation. Like these opportunities exist. The ones that don't come along often are Jason Robertson. So to your point, if he really is available, you give them pretty much whatever they want, including Perreault, Cooley, Laba, whoever. Short of that, though, it's going to be like throw as many darts at the Barrett Haytons and those type and Shane Wrights of the world.
So the other piece is all those pieces in Eklund, Lund, Yurov, Spacek, Hayton, 3 first-round picks, and then another pick out, Panarin, Trocheck, Schneider, Susie.
Yep.
You take some of those. You take Eklund, Spacek, and 2 firsts, a 26 and a 27, and you send them to Dallas for Robertson.
Right. And that to me makes sense because right. Eklund is a goal scorer. I mean, they're not getting Panarin in that situation, they're not.
No, San Jose winds up with Panarin, and the Rangers get Eklund, who winds up going to Dallas in this.
Right. And Eklund is a guy who, again, looking at his numbers, again, right now he's on pace for his career high in goals. He's got 11 through 45 games. His career high was last year. He had 17 goals, but 41 assists, so he had 58 points. So yeah, he's a 50 maybe to 60 point guy when he hits his ceiling. But plus the 2 first rounders, is that enough? Maybe. I don't know. Look, it's really
and
hard.
And a young right-handed defenseman in Spacek.
Right, Spacek, which they need, and he's got like a decent, kind of pedigree and upside. Right.
Yep. And the summary of all that is the Rangers essentially bring in an elite talent in Robertson, a third-line center in Hayton, a middle six winger in Yurov, a good enough prospect in Lund, and multiple high draft picks to work with that they can, again, reassess the following year.
Yep.
I am biased, and I go with the way I laid it out, but I understand what ASJFJR is saying regarding all the holes and some of the replies saying just accumulate everything and pass on Robertson.
No, no,
I don't. I'm not.
No,
I don't agree with passing. I understand it. I don't agree with it.
Yeah, sure. No, look, I think separating what they should do with what they will do, right? So what they should do from what they will do. If there is a world where Jason Robertson is available and they have the assets to go get him, they're going to make that trade 100 times out of 100. I guarantee it, because this is supposed to be a quick retool. If they were going down a longer rebuild path, they probably would continue to accumulate assets. But then again, look, I mean, the last rebuild, for all of its flaws, was accelerated, rightly in my opinion, when Panarin said he would come here for less money. That's not an opportunity you can pass up. I'm sorry. It's very easy to retcon that now and do 2020 hindsight and say, well, they shouldn't have done that and they should have held on and let the kids blossom and blah, blah. Like, no, like when a generational type of player, elite player becomes available, and especially in free agency, and he chooses you for less money, you don't say no to that under any circumstances. So,
exactly.
Look, so that's why, like, I get it. And I'll agree with you. I understand the discussion point, but there's not a chance in hell they're passing on Jason Robertson if he's available.
Yep. All right, moving on. 2-line passes. What other teams do you follow in the NHL that you're enjoying watching?
Oh, man.
I got to admit, I am barely able to get to watch getting to the Ranger games in time because of bedtime with the girls. And I'm so disgusted with how the Rangers look that I'm not even... I'll sit down and keep it on in the background, but I'm not actively watching anymore because as much as I want to watch and say, hey, this is what the systems look like, this is what they're supposed to be doing, let me get involved. I can't get emotionally invested in this team because they're not emotionally invested. So why am I supposed to be emotionally invested? So to answer that question, I don't have any other teams that I'm really watching because I can barely even watch my own when I want to.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I also, when the Rangers aren't playing, I'm watching the Knicks or I'm watching a TV show or a movie. Like, it's just, I mean, I still watch the Rangers, force a habit, and I do enjoy watching them. And, look, it is what it is. But at the same time, no, I mean, I said it earlier, right? Like they're playing out the string. There's only like 30 games left. It's amazing how fast this season has gone. Like, we've blown through the halfway point. Like, the season's over. Like, it's sad to say, but again, like I'll reference my Jet fandom again. Like, the Jet season usually ends around Halloween, which is like the 8th or 9th game of the year. This season ended like game 45. Like, it's over. So let's just move on. I'll watch the games. And look, when the playoffs start, I love the NHL playoffs. I will watch those. It's an incredible product. It's basically what the NHL at its best. And at that point, I'll pick a team. I usually actually do like rooting for Dallas. I will say, like, my favorite non-Ranger, and the guy that I frankly wish the Rangers had, is Roope Hintz. I think I just love that dude. And he's not like a particularly flashy, like he's not like a McDavid or like a Celebrini or a McKinnon, but like he's almost like Mika Zibanejad on steroids. Like if Mika was like 2 steps faster. The dude's just awesome. Just an awesome player. And really like watching him play, and generally like Dallas, even though I hate Peter DeBoer when he was the coach there. So, but I'm not watching a lot of hockey outside the Rangers currently. I agree with you.
So I'm just looking. Hintz was a 2nd-round pick in 2015.
Don't get me started. I would love. Could the Rangers have had him? I don't even want to know. I'm sure they could have.
The Rangers picked 41st in that year.
Who did they draft?
Do you really want to know the answer to that
I
question?
sure do, Dave. We're here.
Ryan Gropp.
Oh God.
That was the Carl Hagelin trade.
Oh no. I shouldn't
If
have said
they
that.
traded Hagelin and landed Hintz, could you imagine?
Oh my God. How happy we'd be. How many Stanley Cups we might have. Because he is like, dude,
I would have been okay with
like,
Eric Chernak. God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I just annoyed myself right now.
Yeah. Jesus.
So players the Rangers, we're off on a tangent. Players the Rangers passed on to select Ryan Gropp. I'll skip the goalie in Mackenzie Blackwood. Eric Chernak at 43rd overall. Daniel Sprong at 46th overall.
Fine player.
Rupe Hintz, 49th. Jordan Greenway, 50th.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy, these are all NHLers.
Yes.
Jeremy Lauzon, whatever, 52nd. Yep. Rasmus Anderson, 53rd. Vince Dunn, 56th.
Oh, God.
I skipped Yakov Trenin, 55th. Jonas Siegenthaler at 57th. Kevin Stenlund, 58th. Oliver Shillington, 60th.
Wow. What a draft, huh? Look at all those guys. There's a couple all-stars in there in the second round, 60 picks deep. Man, oh, man.
The Rangers did not have a first-round pick that year.
Yes.
That was the Ryan Callahan trade.
Yes, that makes sense, and that's fine. Look, I don't mind if you're in that contention window, trade the picks. I'm totally aligned with that. But man, passing on Rupe Hintz for Ryan Gropp, that is just that, and Lias Anderson. When I had to really revisit that when I was reading the Mercogliano article earlier today, that kind of sums it up for Rangers drafting over the last 15, 20 years, doesn't it? I just brutal.
Yep. So for those who don't know, Lias Anderson, the Rangers really wanted either Cale Makar or Elias Pettersson. They both went 4 or 5. Rangers had 7. They were just like, Lias Anderson. And that was it. And they wound up passing on Gabe Villard, players that actually matter. Casey Middlestat, Gabe Vilardi, however you pronounce that, Marty Nietzsche, Nick Suzuki, one rapist,
Robert Thomas.
Cal Foot. Well, the rapist is Cal Foot. Sorry.
You're right. Yeah. No, Robert Thomas is
Robert Thomas is
very
another
good
guy they
from
passed on. Yep. Taken 1 pick before Philip Hedl.
Yeah, I'm fine. If Hedl was healthy, I wouldn't kill them.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't. He was acquitted, Cal Foot, so I can't say that. But
yeah,
you know where I stand on that. Anyway, next one, blue shirts. If it was up to us, 100% who stays and who goes. I think it's easier to say who stays, and I agree with the Rangers. Just Igor and Fox. Everybody else is on the table.
Yeah, that's an easy one. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
There is a second piece. At what price? I mean, the best package, most quality talent coming in. I'm not looking. I'm treating this like the draft. Get as many assets as possible. Get the highest ceiling. Don't draft. Don't trade for position. Don't trade for team need. Go in, get as many pieces as you can, and figure it out later.
Agreed. The only thing I'll add, honestly, and I know this is sacrilege, although I've said it before, if somebody comes in with a Godfather offer for Adam Fox, I'm definitely listening. And I love Adam Fox, and I know he will be part of the next wave, hopefully, unless the next wave comes 10 or 15 years from now. Let's hope that's not the case. But the next good Ranger team will most likely have Adam Fox very much at the center of it. At the same time, man, oh man, like look what Quinn Hughes got you, and I think you probably get more for Adam Fox. So I'm at least listening. I'm listening. I'm not saying I'm doing it.
I was talking with the Ducks fan on Blue Sky, and she floated. This is coming from the Ducks fan. Mason McTavish, Pavel Mintyukov, one prospect, which I'm drawing a blank on. Who was the prospect? Drawing a blank on the prospect, unfortunately. A top prospect and a first-round pick in 26 for Adam Fox.
Okay. I mean, what
I'd have a hard time saying no to McTavish.
Yes.
Mintyukov, a top prospect. Again, I'm drawing a blank on the name, unfortunately.
That's
and
fine.
a first round pick. I do that in a heartbeat.
Of
Sorry,
course. Well,
Foxy.
yeah. Well, and the other thing is what you do then, because this is how real teams do it. You would then call up whoever, another team that might be interested, and you say, "I just got offered McTavish, Minchikov, their top prospect, and a first. Can you beat or match that?" And that's how you get the best package. So you turn it into a bidding war. And if that's the package, oh yeah, I'm strongly considering it, no doubt.
Yep.
It just is what it is. Look, like you can't be afraid. We have witnessed like 120 now or so, right? 80 plus the last 40 or so. 120 games of absolutely horrendous hockey. I mean, let's be honest. Like none of this has been good.
Yeah.
They started this year fine enough under Sullivan. They were businesslike. They played defense. They worked hard, but they couldn't fucking score. They're too slow. Last year was a train wreck. Even the good teams we know were flawed because they weren't good enough 5-on-5. I mean, the evidence of this not being good enough has been there for years. And the only way you really turn it over is to not let any stone go unturned. So now, again, I'm not saying you have to trade Adam Fox. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you're serious about roster construction and building a true championship contender, you're listening on everything.
Yep. And there's more to this from Blue Shirts. Is there a name nobody's mentioning that the Rangers will and could be traded? I'm going Sam Carrick.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd say Will Cooley too. I think in the right deal, Will Cooley goes. I think they want him. Yeah, well, I mean, look, he hasn't had a great year, although I think that's okay. He's not. I mean, look, I'm not saying you trade every guy off of every bad year. That the Rangers would have traded Chris Kreider 3 times before he ended up scoring 50 goals and 45 goals and whatever, right? So you can't always do that, right? Some guys do hit their primes and hit their ceilings a little bit later than others. And Cooley's still a very young and very valuable piece. But again, if it's a Jason Robertson or even like I'm struggling to think of another example, but a young guy with a lot more upside than Will Cooley and a little bit more of that high skill set that you're referring to, Dave, that they need to import here. I think it's possible.
Yeah. Fair enough. I don't know if Drury thinks that way too, which brings me to the third question from Blue Shirts. What are the odds Drury actually pulls this off and we get a parade? 0.
Yeah. Well, so true odds. Yeah. About like 100 to 1. Yeah. They're very long odds. It's like a 5 to 10% chance, I would say.
All right. Last question. Gerard Gallant slander account. Still one of the best names out there. I love it. Your piece about Shane Wright got me thinking about another young forward who's struggling, Kent Johnson out of Columbus. While Wright has more pedigree, quote, whatever that means, Johnson's single season point totals are higher. Would you consider shipping Laugh off to Ohio for him? And what else would you want included in the deal? I have not looked into Kent Johnson at all. I have to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean,
I figured in division it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that's necessarily the case because Columbus needs to seriously assess where they're at and because they're about as bad as the Rangers and they're very irrelevant. I mean, look, I had pulled up his stats: 5 goals, 10 assists, 15 points in 49 games. He's only playing 13 minutes. So last year, his ice time jumped. He had a really good year last year. 24 goals, 57 points, over 17 minutes of ice time. 4 of those goals on the power play. This year, only 5 goals, none on the power play. So it looks like he lost his power play time. If I had to guess, right, with the lower ice time and the lack of production on the power play. But am I interested in Ken Johnson? Yeah, absolutely. He has he has a similar arc to Barrett Hayton, honestly. Similar to Barrett Hayton, similar in some ways to Eklund. I mean, I think Eklund is a little bit more consistent. He doesn't have the ceiling, but he's kind of in that 11 to 20 goals range over the course of his young career. I mean, look, like these are the types of guys, though. Again, like to our point earlier, like that's why if Robertson's available, you have to do it because he's just in a different class compared to all these guys. Now, look, if we were looking at Mika Zibanejad when he was a 23-year-old before the Rangers traded for him, we probably would have looked at him and said, okay, he's got 35 points. He's had 40 points. if he hits his ceiling, he could be really, really good. But it's no guarantee. So you do have to take a chance here. Like none of this is, there's no certainty here, but they're at a point where they have to be throwing darts at guys that are under the age of 25. Kent Johnson's 23, another 5th overall pick. So he's almost exactly Barrett Hayton, Dave. Like he's almost the exact same player. I guess he's drafted as a center, but it looks like he plays wing. I don't think he's at least not taking a lot of faceoffs. I don't know if he's deployed as a center in their D zone, neutral zone or whatever, but
actually Cap Wages will have that breakdown.
Right. Yeah. High pedigree, 131 points in 247 games. So if you want to extrapolate that out, he's roughly a 44-point player.
He's a right winger. He's not play center.
Right winger. Okay, fine.
Yeah, and I did not play center. He's 23 years old.
Yeah,
I would look at that. The thing that would worry me is the play driving metrics. Johnson's 3-year average is far worse than Laughs, and they've both been on pretty crappy teams for 2 out of those 3 years at a minimum. So I do think Lafreniere would hold more value.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if the Rangers would be able to pry a future first-round pick out of that.
Maybe. Or another pick.
You won't get a 26. You won't get a 26, but maybe a 27 or a 28.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I think it's worth looking into for sure.
Yeah. And that was, by the way, the Brennan Othmann draft,
mm-hmm.
whom the Rangers took 6 picks before Dallas took Wyatt Johnston.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
What's with the Rangers taking inferior players and then Dallas going in and taking the center that would have changed the Rangers' trajectory completely?
Sounds like we should hire some Dallas guys for our draft room.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe we should go. Maybe Dolan should take some of his money that he's spending on the team and say, you know what? Let me spend more money on scouting and tell Drury to say, I don't like you guys. You haven't developed shit in God knows how long. So we're going to go and just hire everybody from Dallas.
Yep.
And we're going to do it that way. I'm going to throw so much money at them that they have to take the job.
I would seriously, and this is like, look, this is exactly how NFL teams operate, right? They basically look at the team with the best defense, and the best defensive coordinator usually gets a head coaching job, and his second in command will usually get a defensive coordinator job. Like, go to their head scout and be like, we're going to make you the director of player personnel for the Rangers and double your salary. Are you interested? And go get that guy, because I would say, you picked fucking Rupi Hintz 5 picks after us. You picked Wyatt Johnston 5 picks after us. I want you to start making those picks for the New York Rangers. That would change things. And I think that's what ultimately is so frustrating about this, is that so much of this is systemic. And again, I'm sitting there this morning reading that Vince Mercogliano article, and my head's hurting, because this isn't just Chris Drury. It goes back to Jeff Gordon. It goes back to Glenn Sather. It goes back to look, I think the last time their drafting and development was good, it was Neil Smith. And what did Neil Smith do? He got forced into trading all their good young players for fucking Craig McTavish and Glenn Anderson. So this is unfortunately the way of the Rangers. So it's something that they're going to have to overcome. But I think, and so much of this stuff is just not covered, and we really don't know what goes on behind the scenes. But the Rangers do need to be looking at, revamping their player personnel, their scouting, all that stuff.
They need to start taking risks.
Yes.
That's the if I were to summarize everything with the Rangers, it's they don't take risks. They don't take a Lafreniere and put him in the top 6 in power play 1 immediately. They don't say, maybe we need to give the European players a little bit more time in the AHL to adjust to North American hockey. Maybe they salvage Kakko and Kravtsov at that point. Talk to them. They need to start taking risks on high ceiling players. They need to start taking risks on getting out of your comfort zone is taking a risk, but I'm talking myself into a corner here, but they don't take, Dan Muse and Chris Knobloch.
Yep. It's a great
there
point.
You go. That is another risk. They are not taking risks. They refuse to think outside of the 200 hockey men bullshit. And I'm so sick and tired of it. And Drury's just another one of those 200 hockey men bullshit types. You know what 200 hockey men wouldn't have done? They wouldn't have hired Jared Bednar. They wouldn't have hired John Cooper.
Yep. It's a great point, and I think that's a great place to end it. We have a long way to go here, and we're going to chronicle it on Live from the Blue Seats. As I said, look, the games are kind of meaningless, but there's so much intrigue here with the trade deadline coming. A team to rebuild, even though they're calling it a retool. I'm going to call it a rebuild until proven otherwise. And it should be, it's always interesting. So we thank you all for listening. As again, Dave is off for a couple of weeks. So Dave, have a great time. I believe you're going to Disney with the family. Have an awesome time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll let you know if it's warmer than 50 degrees, because that's what it looks like it's going to be right now.
I was going to say, hope you luck out with the weather. Enjoy that. Everybody enjoy the snowstorm, and we'll talk to you next week.